Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what do you do when you've got this big, ridiculous, yelling cartoon who's so convinced that he's believing in something that, you know...
You realize that there are some people that you're not going to get through to. Trust me, when we have discussions with people on the show, I've had some lengthy discussions with some callers when I know, beyond almost any doubt, that there's no chance that anything that I'm going to say is going to affect them at all, is going to change their belief at all. I don't do it for their benefit. I do it for the benefit of the people out there who are on the fence, or who are confused, or who are in a similar position but are more open to reason and argument. Allowing them to hear both sides of the exchange may help them make a decision, one way or the other. I mean, I could fail miserably and strengthen somebody's faith, and that's a risk I take all the time in these discussions. But it's a risk that I not only think is worth it, it's necessary. These type of conversations have to happen. They haven't happened enough. The public dialogue and debate on these issues that are, you know, even if there is no God, it's still a valuable subject worth considering and discussing, if not for the only reason that there are so many people who seem to think that this is true.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
It seems like the overall theme of Catholicism and growing up and being raised, you know, in that spirit is that just pure denial. So it's just, you know, the Sunday Catholic is exactly what it is. It's just, you know, you're a bar brawler every day of the week except Sunday, and you know,
I know some
ultimately
people.
It just makes you wonder why are you getting so bent out of shape? Why are you wasting so much energy on this anger? And you know, ultimately, I just want the old guy to lighten up.
Yeah, and on that note, I'm going to move on to some other callers real quick, but I just say, and I don't mean this, somebody's going to take this as an insult, I don't mean it as such. At some point I was probably guilty of it as well. I know there are plenty of people who defended their beliefs vehemently because they're not quite as sure as they profess. Now, I'm not saying that's the case for all of them. I don't want to paint them with all of the same brush, but also that some of them have come to adopt and change their beliefs based on their own preferences. You know, there are some, let's say, Baptists who like to have a drink who decided, hey, I can be a Catholic and drink, so I'm going to become a Catholic. And that's not the case for all the people who do make that transition, but it happens. And we talked about this briefly on Nonprofits. We're very reluctant to take responsibility for our actions and admit that we're wrong. And Schilling talked about this with regard to people who've been scammed by the 419 scams or a psychic or anybody else, where they just keep giving money over and over again. Some of them, even when they start to realize that they're being scammed, they now have so much invested in it that they keep doing it. And all these parents who have dead children now because they prayed instead of seeking medical attention, we hear about people who've been scammed coming out and saying, finally, after $400,000 and putting my entire family out living on the street, I realized that I was scammed, and I want to, admit that and tell other people and maybe prevent this from happening. I'm not aware of any stories. I'm still waiting for somebody to email me one, or at least we don't hear about it, where there's a family who, for religious reasons, let's say, doesn't get their kid medical attention. The kid dies, and then the family says, "Holy crap! How dumb were we? Look what we did to our kid. Not only were we wrong, but we're incredibly remorseful of this, and now we understand and realize that this concept of maybe not getting rid of the entire concept of God, but the entire concept of intercessory prayer, for example, is hogwash. That we're thinking beings who have an obligation to the children we produce to protect them. You don't hear those stories. You don't hear people coming out saying, I used to be a Christian Scientist, but I prayed instead of seeking a doctor, and I killed my son, and now I'm here to tell all of you that Christian Science is wrong. That just doesn't happen. And we talked about that a little bit. I think denial, amount of investment, and just kind of personal preferences, and not being resistant to change, being incredibly fearful of change and the unknown. What happens when I stop believing in God? I think deists, for example, who email me, the God of deism is, in my opinion, like Linus's blanket. it's a comfort thing that they're dragging around with them. And I'm sure that now I've insulted deists as well. The reason I say that is because more often than not, the argument that they give is this, there must have been some kind of first cause, and since I can't think of anything better, we're going to go ahead and call it a God. Maybe it still exists, maybe it doesn't. It probably doesn't care anything about humans, but I'm still going to go ahead and believe in a God. And my thing is, no! When you get back to the point where you can't go back any further, the answer is, I don't know. It's not, I can't think of anything better, so we're going to use some God definition. What definition of God? What kind of God? What do you know about it? If you can't possibly know anything about this, what's the use in believing that? Don't you have to know what you're believing? And if you, I think it's a security blanket in the sense that, well, I just believe that there's some possibility, that there's something out there, some higher power. Okay, believing in the possibility is not the same thing as believing. Congratulations, if you're sitting at home saying, oh, these atheists are too hard-nosed, and I just believe that there's a possibility that there's some higher power. Congratulations, you're an atheist, because you don't actually believe it. I believe that there's a possibility, an extremely slim one, depending on how you define the deity in question. But we're not talking about belief in possibilities or belief in probability. We're talking about belief. Is this true? Do you believe it's true? If so, you're a theist. If not, you're an atheist. And I think you know, for at least many deists and the arguments that have been presented in favor of deism, it's a security blanket. I don't want to give up on this idea of a God, and I don't want to sound arrogant that I know there aren't any gods. Well, congratulations. I don't know there aren't any gods. I don't believe there are any. Matter of fact, I believe there aren't any gods.
Well, this gets back to this idea that unless you can definitively say how the universe came into existence, then you can't say that God didn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, the anti-vaxxers use that stuff too. I'll get back to that in a minute. But
yeah.
You know, which is nonsense. That's like that is not how to think about a problem, because you can actually rule some things out before you know what the ultimate cause of something is. And in fact, that's kind of more efficient, because then you don't have to worry about those things that you've already ruled out. But you know, we see this a lot with people. Oh, well, you know, you don't know how the universe got started, so you can't say for sure that God didn't do it because you weren't there to observe it. Well, no, but if we look for evidence of something and we don't find it where we should, then that's a piece of data against this hypothesis that God or, you know, whatever exists.
Here's something that came up while I was watching TV yesterday, and I had to spin it in a different direction. Sitting there at home, think of any three-digit number and another three-digit number and multiply the two together. Now, I have no idea what three-digit number you thought of, so I have no idea what the answer is. But I do know some things about the answer. I know that it's not 400 digits long. And I don't have to know anything else about it. There are things that we can eliminate. You know, even if you didn't know what 2 plus 2 was, you know that it's not going to be over 100, let's say. We can narrow the field with some, not just estimation, but some knowledge about the way things work.